doing, bud? Oh, got that.
You're fine.
You're fine. What are you doing? Can you tell me what you're doing?
Jacking?
What are you doing? What are you jacking up?
A truck.
A truck?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty crazy. So today we're working on getting our fuel system finished up for the Terminator X. So we have a few things we have to change up. So we tried running this on a factory computer, and I think it would have been fine, but I missed. I was having issues with the fuel driver module and so on and so forth. So I just said, starting over, I'm gonna get the Terminator X, and so with the Terminator X, I have to do a return style fuel system, when originally it was returnless. So, to give you a rundown of what I got going on, I had to relocate and put in a fuel cell, which is right here. We got I can't remember the liter per hour pump. I was running a Corvette style regulator, which that can go to something else later on. It's nice and clean, nice and flat. Probably end up building the skid plate under here. But just one line coming off and goes all the way to the front. And then, so we got to get this all switched up and switch to a adjustable fuel pressure regulator, because the Terminator X only requires 43 psi. And so now I had to switch up fuel rails. So here's some aftermarket rails working on laying in right now. And then we'll mount the fuel pressure regulator on the firewall somewhere and run the return line all the way back. If you didn't know, 4-valve intake with intake runners. We're deleting intake runner flaps, which hopefully doesn't affect torque much, because that's what they used it for, to adjust the, oh, we got a helper, was to adjust the torque range using the flaps by closing and opening them. So now we're deleting those, getting the fuel rails in, and then doing the fuel lines. And we're gonna get on to the next thing after that. Alright, yeah, we're still moving forward on the fuel system kind of thing. So I bought that fuel rail kit, and it's just for a like standard 4.6, 2-valve, 4-valve, whatever. I ended up having to trim off, this is about 3 inches off the rail just to be able to fit it between the intake, and I'll show you that. If you look right here, it's really close to the upper radiator hose crossover tube, and then on the back right here, it's really hard to see because it's dark, but the intake casting is like right behind this fitting, so not cool. Kind of nerve-wracking having to chop off 3 inches off a brand new fuel rail, but I just re-tapped it and drilled and tapped it, and now we should be good to go. So the way this fuel system is going to work, so I got my fuel pressure regulator mounted. The fuel line off the tank is going to come up, it's laying in here, under here somewhere, and it wraps around, feeds the rail, and then holds back pressure through the regulator, which is a little different than what I'm used to, but that's what Holly wanted. Usually in like the style return style fuel system, I would run a feed line to the regulator, and then the regulator would relieve any pressure back to the tank, and then the pressure that was allowed through, so it would basically be a deadhead system, so it would run a returnless portion to the rail. I'm not sure which is better, that's just the way I've always done it. So I got the fuel system, I got to run a crossover tube from hose from this side of the rail to that side over there, and then I got the fuel line dropped through. It's just laying on the floor, and I'll have to run that out, but it's a little wet in here right now. But so I started putting in my Holly harness. I got this side of the coils plugged in, and I popped the stock ECU out, and you kind of see it down here. There's a hole in the firewall right there, and that's where the old ECU is. And I'm gonna run the harness in there and probably put the Holley ECU up under the dash somewhere. And then as far as harness wise, we got all these blue guys. These are the original harness that I made for the US shift controller to tie into the factory harness, so I could still retain like the speedometer and stuff like that. Now I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do all that, because it had some of the power wires and stuff tied in, so I didn't have to do like a full rewire on it. So I have to pull these wires back, and I'm gonna tie them in instead of going outside the body and then up to the front. I'm gonna just do them under the dash, and then whatever needs to drop out to the transmission will just drop through the floor right to the transmission. Kind of get some wires out of the muck and stuff that way. We also have to build an intake. I might use the factory airbox, but the Holley system doesn't require a mass airflow sensor. It just uses a map sensor in the ECU, or an external map if you're using like if you're boosting it, which is nice for future plans. Say this four valve doesn't have enough power, we can always throw like a Terminator supercharger on it or something of the sort. We have plenty of room for the most part up front, so we could always do like a centrifugal blower also. So got that to do, but right now we're just gonna work on fuel system and the Holley kit and trying to get this thing running. So one downfall of this cheap rail kit was all it came with for mounts was these little C's, and they sit over the rail like this, but I have to get the distance from here down to the intake. So I've been grabbed some 3/8 brake line, and I cut some spacers. I'll run a bolt down through it and see how that works. So I got the whole passenger side of the Terminator X wire like laid in. I'm just kind of doing this so I can see where my ECU mounting options were, so on and so forth. So I got that's all plugged in, coils are plugged in. Obviously I'm gonna figure out how to tidy this stuff up, so on and so forth. Power wire running down next to the battery cable. And then thought I found a pretty good spot to mount it. I was gonna get rid of the passenger side airbag out of the dash. I really don't feel like taking away the structure of the dash, because otherwise this panel just gets like soft when you get rid of them. So should work pretty good there, I think, and plugs in good and everything. Then all the other wires come down underneath here, so I just gotta sort through them, get that stuff mounted, and work through that wiring. On this side, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I have a US shift 4, quick shift 4, and or quick 4, my bad. And I was gonna mount it right here, and we'll see if that works out still. I kind of wanted to put it over here now that I won't need like the these buttons per se for the stock dash. So we'll see. I'm gonna try and still use the factory gauge cluster for the speedometer and temp and whatever, you know, your fuel level and tack and all that, because I think the gauge clusters in these things are really cool. But we'll see how things go as I get wiring. If not, then we'll just run it off the the factory Terminator dash, and the quick shift has a speedo readout on it. So we'll see. So working on getting this fuel system wrapped up. Like I said, it's kind of been a couple weeks. Holidays are kind of crazy for us. We leave town a couple times and so on and so forth. So, but it's pretty simple. Fuel system wise, got it ran down. I think the last time I showed was it coming through here. So I gotta put a couple zip ties here to hold it in place. But it comes along underneath the body, along up here, and then up above the wheel well. Here, see, and then all the way to the back. Can't see much, it's kind of dark in here, but we got a return line plumbed into the tank now instead of the regulator to the tank. This is our vent line. I'm gonna redo this eventually, but not a big deal right now. Then I had to put a extension like bulkhead on our feed line, so I don't feel like redoing the whole fuel line. So now we need to put pressure to it once we get the last fuel line in, which is the crossover. Which I'll show you that real quick. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So there'll be a hose from here to here. Get it tightened down, and then we gotta put our fuel line on the end of the rail. Now we'll turn it on the fuel pump, run it to 43 psi, get adjusted, verify it doesn't leak, and then once that's done, we can put the rear winch in. So that'll be cool. Sometimes I like to make things a little fancy. So these are coil covers. I don't know if I talked about them yet or not, but these coil covers were $100 with the gaskets. But they're $25 a gasket at the parts store. So it makes sense just to buy the whole thing with some cool powered by SVT coil covers. The old ones aren't too bad. They're just, I already painted them blue, but I think those ones are way cooler. So we're gonna paint them up. This is a cast iron Rust-Oleum ceramic paint. And then we're gonna go back and do some painting all the letters. And probably do the SVT in blue and do the rest in black. Do something different. Pretty nifty. Now we're gonna do the black. We're just gonna do it on these two lines and the words, and then these two lines. And fix my little, not perfect, but it works. Still doing some tinkering before I release this video, so I was just test fitting my winch. I had to notch some stuff out, as you can see here. Had to clearance that for my handle, and I also made an access to the top just in case it gets jammed up and I need an extra hand. Fairly done. That's gonna get switched to nylon, and then we got those fancy coil covers installed. Turned out pretty good. I'm gonna work on this wiring, I think, this weekend. Here's the other side. Too shabby. I can't really see it, I guess. I just finished stitching up my steering wheel, which is something like I put a cover on it. It needed it because the steering wheel is pretty ate up, but I could have just replaced the steering wheel. But I kind of wanted all the functions. But you can see, I don't know, I've never really done this before, but it turned out pretty good, I think. Now I'm deleting this your garage door opener dealio. I obviously don't plan on using that. So I gotta get this box out of here. And I'm gonna make a hole a little bigger on this end so I can put my control panel in. This is where all my lights are gonna run off of. Lights and any other accessory stuff. And it'll never be used as a stock function anyway, ever again. So we're going to, as my weapon of choice, good old step bit. We're just gonna open it up until this is centered on the door a little better. But also can't get too deep into here because the it gets too concave and this is flat. So it's ruin stuff, I guess. Look at that. Nice hole. Uh-oh. Lost your control panel. So, our goal here was to get this up here. That. And you can see that it's a little... it's close. I think we're going to take another step or so. And then we'll call it. So it's just a little bit of double-sided tape, and I'm gonna stick this on without the camera so you don't have to watch me struggle. Alright, here it is, all installed. Pretty clean overall. Just kind of trying to keep the interior intact as much as possible. Like, my goal is to even have the factory gauges function. So I'm gonna have to tap into them with aftermarket bits, but like this thing's got music and everything, bro. Like all these controls work, minus cruise control. But we can actually, with our quick 4 box, we can tap into our cruise control stuff and make it paddle shift through the button. So that's pretty cool. All the fun stuff. So I also plan on doing like Android CarPlay radio. So I'm not sure if the functions will actually work with that at that time. I'm actually not sure if the functions work after saying that they do, because they don't. But it might be just it's the battery is a little low yet too, as you can see. It's a little dimmed out. The cool thing is, like, power seats all still work, power mirrors all still work. I gotta find some headlight wiring stuff. Yet the memory even should still work for the seats. So kind of exciting. I mean, there's a bunch of junk back here right now, but there's plenty of room for kids too. So kiddos shall have a good time riding along. So the next bit of our switch panel, we gotta pop it back down and put a micro USB cord in it and run it all the way down to wherever we put the membrane, which is probably going to go down here somewhere. So maybe we'll go that way with it. So you can see I have a little bit of ADHD, and I started putting in my LED conversion on my lights too, because me having the door open, it keeps running the battery dead. So, and I already had the center that console down. You can see the wire sticking out right here. That's the USB cord that goes to the membrane. So I'm just working on running that down the column now. I also swapped out this bad boy to LEDs. It's kind of tinkering, more or less. Not really a necessity, but kind of stuff that I like to do. Add a little touch to it without getting too crazy. Probably will also switch these little floodlights out, or I think that's what they're called, floodlights. Shine to the ground. Switch those out to LEDs eventually too, but like I said, it's not Just kind of tinkering, knocking some stuff out here and there. Still trying to figure out where I'm gonna put this membrane. So it's pretty simple, you know, you just tap your power into whatever spot you want, and then up there it'll correlate with whatever number is on here. Plugs in like a normal USB. You notice I got some other stuff going on here. Got my Holly coil driver stuff. My harness is all coming through where the stock ECU is, and I have my terminator mounted in here. So I'll switch that out to LED 2 here shortly. So a few things I've been absolutely dreading is this wiring mess, but I've been tinkering around with it for a little bit. You see that bad boy. Figured out which wires go to my fog lights, the factory fog lights. So now that's easy. It's just a simple push and pull. And I just got to figure out the other side, or just tie them both into one side. They're just LEDs. But one step down, I also figured out high beam wires and a couple other wires. So I'm going to start going through all this junk and finishing out what I don't need and what I do need. Well, I think I'm gonna call it a weekend at this spot. I got a lot of my harness gone, so it seems like a lot still. But so this is another bit that I gotta cut out, and I'm gonna take them all the way down to the beginning and terminate them properly. I got a couple wires I haven't figured out what to do yet. I think one of them is I think this one maybe is a high beam light wire, and then I have another wire I did accidentally shorten way under there. That is a turn signal, but we're doing pretty good. This is part of our headlight harness. This is a power wire. I'm going to use to power that switch box or switch panel inside, so extend that out. This relay over here is a fan relay, the factory fan, so that's real simple. It's plugged in right here. And a couple other random wires that actually make sense what they go to. And once I get all this tapped into where they belong, we'll get it all loomed up, cleaned up, and get rid of a lot of this. I really wish I could get rid of this fuse box, but it does still power a lot of other things other than the front stuff, so it's gonna be going, or not going, but we'll have to figure out how to mount it in this tight little hole because it doesn't fit where it belongs. Started unpackaging the Holly wiring a little bit to see. So there's a couple wires, this purple wire in here and this little red wire are gonna be the power wire for the Holly because they're clean power. One's a trigger, one's always on. So I feel like I got a good amount done. Got to look into the US shift stuff and figure out where I'm at on that. So that's the plan. Just gonna keep picking away at this wiring because it's probably my most dreaded project in the whole bit that's left. Plus, once the wiring's done, get the fuel system wrapped up, which is just this hose that's left. Get it dialed in with the pressure it's supposed to be, and then we'll be able to fire it up for the first time on the Holly harness. It has ran on the stock harness, just not very well. And then the transmission harness, I've never tried to drive it yet, so a couple things I need to do before we actually try and drive it. This gearbox has to come, first off I need to adjust it. You can see it's out of adjustment there. That kind of kills the slack on the steering wheel. So this is a 78 Bronco, or not, 78 F-150 steering gearbox with a 96, I don't know what that piece is actually called, but together it makes a rock crawler box, and it's a 4 turns one way, or 4 turns full lock, for lock to lock, and it also reverses the pitman arm. So normally arm would be on the front, and now it's on the back. So that's pretty cool. Kind of help my packaging, because otherwise my steering arm would be way up here, obviously. So that's it. I appreciate you guys for checking out my videos. Like I said, we're gonna keep pushing forward on this thing, and work on getting more content, and me hopefully do some wheeling soon. So appreciate you guys again. Like, subscribe, share with your buddies. And who doesn't want to see a jacked up Lincoln, right? So I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas, and hope you have a great New Year.